Welcome to the 517 In Your Business podcast. Here's your host, Mary Gaida.
Welcome back to 517 in Your Business. Today we're digging into something that impacts every business but often gets managed reactively instead of strategically, the Employee Benefits Plan year. So we've got Eric Hanna with us today, Employee Benefits Consultant working with mid-market employers. Welcome back, Eric.
Thanks, Mary. Always a pleasure to be back. Before we got started, I know you have a big event coming up next week, the 517 Business Awards on March 18th. So we've got a table. We're excited to attend. How's prep going? And what can we expect? What can you tease out there for us?
Yeah, prep is going very well. You can expect swag bags with some cool stuff inside of them. You can expect a fantastic dinner. We've got David Andrews as co-host this year from WILX, Gray Television. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, great cookies from Coco's Confections, which you're going to absolutely love.
Oh,
And I'm super excited. We actually have an afterglow with a Motown band called The Collective.
that's a full night.
It's a full night,
Yeah,
jam-packed
that's
into
going to be
just a
awesome.
couple hours. So it's going to be, yeah, I'm really excited. Thanks for asking.
Great. Yeah, yeah. Well, can't wait for it.
Yes. So, Eric, most companies treat benefits like our event coming up, an annual event. Open enrollment happens, renewals get negotiated, and then it's mostly quiet until the next cycle. So, why is that a problem?
Yeah, we sit here in late quarter one in March of most companies' benefits plan year, and we've had enough distance from what I call the open enrollment hangover. So that's kind of subsided, right? The pressure and prep and execution that happens around the beginning of the plan year is kind of subsided now. But health plans don't operate annually. Really, they operate daily. So claims are happening every day. Prescriptions are being filled every day. Employees are making healthcare decisions on a daily or a regular basis. So, if business leaders only think about benefits once a year, they're managing one of their top three expenses in a 12-month lens. And that's not how you run payroll. It's not how you manage inventory. And in my opinion, it shouldn't be how you best manage the healthcare spend. So for a successful plan year, it isn't just about avoiding the next renewal or waiting on the next renewal. It's about controlling the controllable before that renewal ever shows up. So, there are ways leaders can set themselves up to have an optimized plan year.
Okay, so I want to break this down into something tactical. If I'm a CFO or a CHRO listening, what should I be doing during the plan year and not just at renewal?
Yeah, so there's some very tactical things and then some prep and planning pieces that I recommend. So first, there's discipline around compliance and fiduciary oversight. So most employers actually underestimate their responsibility here. So under
Mm.
ERISA, the rules that govern group health plans, employers are a plan fiduciary. So that means they must act prudently. They need to monitor their vendors. They need to be aware of cost drivers and impacts to the employees, and they have to document decisions. So you have to have a plan around that, as well as building a compliance calendar to make sure they're submitting the proper filings. 5500s, ACA reporting for over 50 employee companies, prescription drug data disclosure, something called PCORI fees, non-discrimination testing, and then there's other required notices to employees on a regular basis. So having that really clearly outlined and executed is really the key piece to it. So, quick kind of side note: we do have a calendar with that compliance guide. If anybody's interested, I'm happy to provide it. So.
It's such a great
Um,
idea.
yeah, I mean, it's a lot, and it can be kind of complicated pretty fast. I mean, healthcare isn't the only part that business leaders are managing. So yeah, if we can provide an additional resource, happy to do that. So to kind of wrap that point up, there's an enhancement most companies miss. Don't just track the deadlines, schedule the governance check-ins. And there should be quarterly and semi-annually reviews that can include that vendor performance piece, fee disclosures, claim summaries, and then any emerging risks that's coming down the track. So it's about financial stewardship, not just the administrative piece.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've touched on this in previous episodes, Eric, that most employers don't really see claims until renewal, if at all. So what do you think they're missing?
visibility and insight into their plant performance. Looking out, the I refer to like sitting in a car. You have a rearview mirror and you have a windshield. Something renewal is looking in the rearview mirror. We want to look out the windshield. We want to see what's coming in
Mm,
front of us. And unfortunately, not every plan structure has access to claims details, but employers should be asking their broker partners and demanding it from their carrier partners as well to provide some at least high level reporting so they know things like what are the large claim drivers? What's utilization look like in the emergency room versus urgent care? What specialty prescription drug costs are there? What kind of chronic conditions are in the group? What's preventative care? Are people getting their health screenings and diagnostics? So, it's not just looking for problems. You're trying to identify opportunities for action and then leverage as you get down the road towards renewals. So, just a couple like high level examples, if you see musculoskeletal spend climbing, maybe you implement a virtual physical therapy program before it becomes a surgical trend, especially prescription drug is rising. Maybe you evaluate plan design changes or engage vendor partners or transparent models. So the best renewals are won 6 to 9 months before the negotiations begin. So, most employers have that experience with a late renewal, a surprise major increase, and then we're trying to work backwards, and it's hard to pivot at that point.
right. I really like the idea of looking at it from a preventive care participation standpoint. I don't know if companies think about that. You have these great programs for your employees, but are you looking at where those spends are? If it's musculoskeletal, like you said, a little bit of PT or maybe bringing in a masseuse or something could be helpful because obviously, your heads are down too much or you're not moving around and
Benjamin Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that applies here 100%. So
hmm
not only is it a low cost activity for the employee, right? Plans are required to pay preventative care at 100%. But the plan costs, not only in the short term, but long term risk mitigation can
right.
be huge. So everybody wins if we're getting our preventative screenings and knowing our numbers and all those sort of health and well-being pieces. So I
Right.
agree with you
So
100%.
it's a communication that happens during open enrollment, but is that enough?
Yeah, in my opinion, it's not, and because I'll distinguish open enrollment from mid-year communication. Open enrollment is really about how do you explain the information so people can make elections for the next plan year and arm
hmm
them for decisions. It doesn't necessarily teach, although we try to weave it in there a lot of times, utilization and optimization. Like there's not enough bandwidth to understand. Maybe you're looking at 10 different insurance products and whether you want to elect them or not. But then also understanding how they all work intimately takes a little more room than what we have at open enrollment time. So certainly you want to have a great, drive at open enrollment time, but then sprinkle and drip out communications throughout the year. So you can, on a high level, you can map it out something like this. On quarter one, you can promote the things we were just talking about, encouraging people to engage in preventative care, annual visits, enroll in the portals that are available. Maybe in quarter two, you're promoting cost comparison tools or transparency apps to help employees navigate costs around the healthcare system. Maybe quarter three or specialty programs, diabetes, we mentioned musculoskeletal, mental health, other
hmm
specialty programs that exist. And maybe quarter four, you're kind of leaning back into open enrollment and doing that literacy refresh. So, if we can help improve employees' benefits literacy, that can help drive behavior,
hmm
and that behavior can impact cost. And then ultimately, for employers over 50 employees, it impacts their renewal. So it's not employees understanding deductibles and networks is really important, but there's a way to kind of round out the conversation.
Absolutely. You're talking about employees, so let's make that shift. What does a successful plan year look like from the employee side?
Yeah, I love the transition. It might sound a little basic, okay, but many employees never log into their member portals and apps that are available right at their
You're
fingertips on
right.
their phone. And inside those portals, most of the time, there are cost comparison tools, there's provider directories, They can see where they sit relative to their deductible and out-of-pocket cost. There may be care navigation support and way to access free resources to help figure out what the right path is next in their journey. And for some plans, there's wellness incentives. I'll tell you my own personal story. I got a preventative screening towards the end of last year, and I got a $150 gift card land in the mail. Um,
Wow.
so some plans have that kind of built in. So, getting in there, understanding how the plan works, there might be more upside than most people realize. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it's a partnership here around how do we help employees manage their experience and their own out-of-pocket costs, and also the employer side, long-term expenses. So, lots of disease management programs and things like that can be driven kind of down into. But if employees don't know these exist, that's a missed opportunity.
Absolutely. It's funny. My own employer just rolled out, we can have the Calm app free. That's an app where you can meditate or it helps you sleep.
Love it.
Super great for mental health. And I was
Love it.
like, wait a minute, this is awesome. And if I hadn't opened that email, I wouldn't know. And I think you're right. People just skip over these things and don't know they exist and miss a whole lot of opportunities.
Agreed. Love it. I love that forward-looking well-being kind of approach with Calm and those kind of meditative apps. They're awesome.
Yes. So where do you see the greatest opportunity for employees to save money?
Right now the hot topic is prescription drug spend.
Mm,
That's the fastest growing line item for most employers, and the employees can benefit from a couple approaches. Again, you can find a lot of these through that member portal, right?
right.
It's asking about generic options rather than just buying the brand. Sometimes,
Hmm.
medical providers have their habits and they write the same brand over and over and over and over again, but maybe there's an alternative that in your plan is less expensive and may still work just the same.
Right.
So just asking about that is important. Comparing pharmacy pricing that way, evaluating mail order versus retail. And by retail, I mean filling it on a 30-day cycle at your local pharmacy versus doing 90-day supplies and having it sent to your house.
Hmm.
There are programs where there are cost plus options, and for the high cost specialty medications, there may be manufacturer coupons or copay assistance cards that are available. So, taking the time to explore that, if you're on chronically prescribed medications, if
Hmm.
it's somebody, has a 7-day supply of a certain medication, filling that at the retail pharmacy makes sense. Like there's no reason to
Right.
come through these kind of hoops. But if this is a medication that's going to be ongoing, look at those alternatives because there might be a better fit.
Yeah. So sometimes the lowest price isn't processed through the insurance, right?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Some pharmacies have specials on, just like everything else, specials on different generics or certain brands, or maybe they have different incentives behind the scenes that make it lower cost than what the contract is between the carrier. Um,
Right.
so yeah, exploring all those options is important. It takes a little time, but I think, there are better and better tools available to say, okay, this is my medication. You know, there's resources to ask for help.
Hmm. So, we've talked about the employer side and the employee side. What happens when both sides engage?
y- you know, it's sort of a magical thing. One, the experience is better for everybody, but you can also stabilize what we call trend, which is the year over year cost.
Hmm.
So, in order to overcome challenges and rising costs, the best practice is that this is a partnership between employees and the employer. So, when employers monitor claims, they communicate consistently and align incentives, and employees use tools, choose cost-effective settings, and engage preventative care, that partnership begins to take shape. So the plan can reduce waste, which again, not only controls costs throughout the year, but then when renewal comes up, employers have an easier time keeping the same level of benefits that they've had in the past.
Right. So the strategic plan year is about just kind of capturing everything going on and figuring things out and planning ahead.
That's yeah, 100%, 100%. Studies consistently show that 20 to 30% of healthcare spend is avoidable waste in administrative inefficiency, site of care differences, misaligned incentives. So a good strategic plan here is about capturing that waste before it compounds and you're paying for it later. So again, let's look out the windshield.
Right.
Bigger view than looking out that rear view mirror.
Is that one of the biggest mistakes you see? And if not, what else do you see out there that people are mistaken
Yeah,
in?
I think quite often we're looking in that defensive posture. We've talked about that in the past, where we
Mm-hmm.
are almost only looking at the rearview mirror, and there's really not a lot you can do in hindsight.
Yeah.
So number one is being able to see forward, but two, treating that renewal as a strategy is still playing defense. So we want to be looking out and forward around requesting claims well in advance before it's underwriting season. Making sure that employers aren't overestimating employee understanding, and making sure that they're documenting their fiduciary oversight. So those are some pretty common tips. But these benefits are complex, and a lot of rules and regulations around them. So we want to make sure that the communication and the game plan is as transparent as possible.
Absolutely. So if someone listening wants to improve their current plan year right away, what can they do right now or this month?
Yeah, on the employer side, it's really getting that schedule for regular check-ins. Whether it's claims, whether it's utilization, maybe it's feedback from the employees, and then looking at some of those detail reporting pieces that we mentioned, building out at least a 6-month or a quarterly communication plan, and then documenting vendor performance review and making sure that you're aligned with the partners that you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
On the employee side, again, first step, if you haven't done it yet, log into your portal, download your virtual health app, download other apps that you have available, like you have Calm, like get that into your phone now.
Yes.
And opt into the notifications. So the information comes right to you. You don't have to go search for it a lot of times. Check deductible status, ask about underutilized programs that you may be able to take advantage of, and then compare that prescription drug pricing before the next refill. So those small proactive decisions can really prevent large cost impacts.
Yeah, I think in today's world, we're all working so hard and we're not thinking about these things. And if we'll just stop and listen to the coach here on this game plan, we'll really find the benefits in that. Any final thoughts?
My hope is employers and employees win the whole plan year. It's not just about the renewal, and
Mhm.
run the health plan like you run the rest of your business. You measure it, you communicate it, you optimize it, and a successful benefit plan year just isn't luck. All right, there's a plan and an execution behind it. So I encourage everybody to take those simple steps.
Yeah, that'd be playing to win, right?
That's right. That's right. We're playing offense.
Yes. Anything else you'd like us to know before we wrap?
I mentioned, we've got content, and I'm happy to share compliance calendars, wellness communication calendars. If you want to know what the wellness topic of the month is nationally, we've got a calendar for that. Might help spur some ideas. So I'm happy to share any of those things. People can message me on LinkedIn or contact me through the show, I think. So I'm happy to be a resource anytime.
Fabulous. Eric, as always, thank you. You teach me so much, and I look forward to every visit to the podcast.
Appreciate it. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to the 517 In Your Business podcast. Get to know local businesses better by reading 517 Business Magazine. Get your subscription at 517mag.com/subscribe.